is John Colo with GrowingYourGreens.com through another exciting episode for you, coming at you from my beautiful backyard garden here. We are here in mid-April. Maybe a lot of you guys are just starting to plant out for your summer garden. Meanwhile, my fall/winter garden is basically getting harvested very quick as the weather warms. We've already had some days in the 90 degrees already. Today's in the 80s, and maybe in a few days it's going to drop back down to the high 60s, low 70s. Nonetheless, you know, my lettuce bed is growing really well. You guys can see I have almost 100 heads of different kinds of lettuces in this bed. A lot of them are actually red lettuces. Links down below on why you should grow purple and or red crops instead of standard leafy greens. But nonetheless, I have a huge lettuce problem now. While I have been harvesting lettuce and making salads out of them, making raw soups out of them. Last week I basically made my green juice out of my homegrown lettuce. I still have more lettuces than I could eat fresh. They are now starting to bolt. You can see that one's starting to bolt. And before they go to bolt and then basically the leaves disappear, I want to use them. So in this episode, I'm going to show you guys the best way to preserve your lettuce for up to 25 years. Yes, that's right. I'm going to preserve my lettuce for up to 25 years by freeze drying my lettuce and turning it into literally a salad that I could freeze dry and then store for up to 25 years. In case there is financial uncertainty or the next pandemic happening, I'm going to still have homegrown lettuce to grow. This is also very important for a lot of you guys that don't live in a climate like mine, where I am able to grow year-round. Maybe you live somewhere where it snows for several months out of the year and it's too cold outside. While you can do the Elliott Coleman style 4-season gardening, which I recommend you guys look up that book, you could also basically preserve your summer harvest and then eat it over the winter as well. So in any case, let's dive into my lettuce and let's get harvesting and let's show you guys how to freeze dry your lettuce super quick and super easy. All right guys, so first thing I'm going to be harvesting my lettuce is when I basically look over my whole lettuce bed to harvest, what I'm looking for is number one, the tallest plants. The tallest plants are starting to bolt. This one is just starting about to put on flowers. If your plant starts to bolt, you know, it's still good to eat. That being said, I probably should have harvested this maybe like 2 or 3 days ago. So once they start to bolt, you want to basically harvest them as soon as you can. And once again, once I process it into salad and then put it in the freeze dryer, it literally puts it into suspended animation. So now the lettuce is in the same state it's in, but it doesn't spoil any longer. So yeah, this is a red romaine, and it's actually bolting. So I basically just take the clippers, I go down to the base and clip it off. And you guys can see basically it's starting to bolt. So what I'll do is I'll strip off all these bottom leaves that are all dried up and all messed up. Any kind of leaves at the bottom that are kind of more dry, kind of come off if they're like yellowing a little bit. And at a certain point, I will leave the rest. Now the cool thing is, a lot of you guys may strip this down and remove the stalk. You know, when you guys end up freeze drying things, the stalk can be freeze dried because it's basically going to make it nice and crunchy, add really nice texture, and also when you freeze dry things, it really makes the fibers more easy to digest because it basically breaks open the cell walls. So basically what I'm going to do now is we got one head harvested. I'm going to go through and now harvest like at least 10 more heads of lettuce, and then we're going to come back at you when we got it all washed and I'm ready for the next step. All right guys, so as you can see, I got all the lettuce washed and it's put in this bowl. I teared out the scale with just the bowl on it, and as you guys can see, I have 4,043 grams of lettuce in this bowl. So basically the next step is I'm going to chop it all up. The goal is to basically get 1,500 grams per tray on each freeze dryer tray. So the first step is we're going to cut all this up into a salad, put in the large bowl, and then we're going to add a dressing, and then we're just going to spread it on the freeze dryer trays. So the first step is I just got to basically take out this lettuce, and we're going to basically chop off a little bit of the stem at the bottom, but then the rest of the stem I'll use. So what I like to do is I like to chop it down the middle so that it's a bit smaller, and I'll basically just chop this into little pieces. So as you guys can see, I basically have chopped lettuce. It's going to basically go back in the bowl, and we're going to chop it all up. We'll come back at you when we got it all done. So as you guys can see, next step is we got all the lettuce cut up. We got it separated out because in one bowl it would have been heaping over the top. So we got half the lettuce here, half the lettuce here. And what I've made is I basically got a tomato guacamole. So I vacuum blended grape tomatoes in the vacuum blender. Then I basically mashed up some avocados and put some guacamole in there. So we have a big container of this. We're going to use about half of the guacamole mixed in with half of the lettuce. Now, because we are using avocados, avocados are very hard to preserve and store. I mean, you could freeze avocados. If you dehydrate or dry avocados, they turn black due to polyphenol oxidase. But the cool thing is, when you freeze dry them, the avocados come out perfect because you're doing it when it's cold and sublimating out the water content, so they store perfectly. So literally what we're doing here is we're making a guacamole tomato salad that we can now store for up to 25 years. So let me go ahead and get half of this tomato guacamole mixed up on this side. We're going to do the other side a little bit later off camera, and then I'm going to show you guys how we're going to freeze dry it. All right, so first step is mix it on up. I always like to use basically tongs to kind of get it mixed up. We're going to kind of bring the dry salad over the wet guacamole and kind of spread it out so we get a nice even distribution. All right, guys, so we got all the tomato guacamole dressing mixed in with the salad. This is what we now look like. It's all coated and covered very easily. This would be a great meal or dinner. Of course, you could add other fresh picked vegetables from your garden, but I'm just trying to get rid of my greens at this point and preserve them so I could store them because they're just going to keep bolting and I still got plenty more to harvest. So anyways, next step is we're going to basically put the salad onto the Stay Fresh freeze dryer trays. If you guys haven't seen my episode on the Stay Fresh freeze dryer, the only freeze dryer I recommend, because I have checked out the others, links down below to my full unboxing and setup for the Stay Fresh, as well as link down below to where I visited the warehouse so you could learn why the Stay Fresh is the best freeze dryer out there, and it's my personal pick and the only one I recommend. So anyways, this is the tray. It's an oversized tray compared to some of the freeze dryers out there. Reason why I like this is because it's completely flat. It is not stamped. They basically take a flat sheet of stainless steel, bend up the sides, and then weld it. This means you're going to have better contact with the shelf of the freeze dryer so that you get even freeze drying. We're going to go ahead and take the tray, put it on our scale. We're going to go ahead and tear out our scale, right? So you guys can see we're pretty much at 0 now. A little bit of wind, so it's kind of going up and down a little bit. But basically we're at 0, and now what we're going to do is we're going to take half of this mixture, which is approximately 1,500 grams, which is approximately 3 pounds of the mixture, and we're going to go ahead and put it on the freeze dryer tray. So I'm going to go ahead and get this up to 1,500 grams and get this even across the tray, and then I'll share with you guys the next step. All right, guys, as you guys can see, I got 1,500, which is about 3 pounds of the greens on here. As you guys can see, it's basically bulging over the top. This is definitely not going to be good because the problem is when I put it into the freeze dryer, it'll hit the shelf because the shelf is more narrow, right? So I basically need to press this down. So what I'm going to do here is we're basically going to go ahead and make sure we got this on the table. We're going to go ahead and then take a piece of non-stick parchment. We're going to put that over the top. I'm going to go ahead and then take a brand new tray, a clean tray, and put the tray exactly on top, and basically just going to press it down. This will basically flatten it so we could fit in the tray. Plus the other thing this will do is that because now we're making better contact, and all the leaves will be closer to the freeze dryer heating element so it can more effectively sublimate out. All right, so now we could remove the tray that we used to press down on. As you guys can see now, this is a lot more flat and will easily fit on the freeze dryer shelf. Now the other thing that we're probably going to do, because this is kind of tall still and my tray spacers are going to be too tall, I'm going to just go ahead and keep on this parchment on top, and we're just going to literally stack on the other trays on top when we pre-freeze them in my freezer. All right, guys, as you guys can see, we got the 4th tray here, and we got all 4 trays here. I basically kind of wrap this underneath so it kind of makes it a little bit neater for each one. So while you could put these directly into the freezer, the challenge with that is that it'll take an extra longer amount of time for the freeze dryer to pre-freeze these before the freeze drying process starts. So the much smarter method to do is I basically will take these and then throw them in my freezer to freeze in the freezer for a minimum of 24 hours. I like to keep it in there a little bit longer. And then I could basically put it into the freeze dryer in a frozen state, and then the freeze dryer, that could save you at least 8 hours or more, you know, off the whole total processing time. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. All right, so we're just gonna go ahead and throw these in the freezer so that they pre-freeze. All right, that's all we got. All right, guys, it's the next day, and our lettuce that we put in the freezer with the salad is just rock hard. Next step is we're gonna go ahead and load it up in the freeze dryer. I did empty the freeze dryer out earlier of the last batch, which was freeze-dried organic strawberries, which taste amazing. I defrosted the unit and dried it all out, and we're now ready to start up the next batch. You don't want to just put in the frozen product into the warm freeze dryer. So first up, you're going to go ahead and hit freeze dry, press the frozen food button, press start. And what's going to happen is it's going to go ahead and kick on the cooler in there. It basically works like a freezer, where it has to, the compressor has to come on, and now it cools the chamber before you put in your, you know, your item that you will be freeze drying. So we're going to let this literally chill out for, I don't know, maybe about 30 minutes or so, and we're going to come back and then load up the freeze dryer with our lettuce. All right, now we're back, and once again, I put the lettuce back in the freezer because we don't want it thawing out while we're waiting for this to get cold. Nonetheless, the shelf temp is a -25, and the trap temp is actually like -33, so it's nice and cold in there. Next step is we're going to go ahead and load up the freeze dryer. You can verify that it's really cold inside there. Shelves are cold, so we're now ready to put in our frozen lettuce salad, and we're going to go ahead and drop that on the bottom tray. All right, next flattened tray going in. Third tray going in. You always want the tray that's the heaviest or has the most water content on this shelf. And finally, the last tray going right in. This is rock hard. Alright, this next step, guys, is optional, but I like to do it whenever possible. Normally you would use basically this sensor, which is a thermostat. It registers a temperature, it sends the data to the machine so the machine can work more effectively. You normally put this in when you basically, before you freeze your food so you can stick it in easier. Because when your food is frozen solid, it can be very hard. That being said, because I'm doing lettuce and there's kind of gaps in there, I should be able to finagle this in. So we're going to go on the second shelf and just kind of like jam this sensor into the frozen lettuce. Hopefully find a spot where we can kind of get it in there. Alright, so we got the sensor set up. You can drop that back into place. Then we're going to go ahead and plug the sensor in, which plugs in right here. Now we're ready to close the door. You want to make sure the valves are shut on the top and on the drain port, which they are. Next step is you're going to go ahead and click the button, food in chamber, and then everything else is automatic here on out. So we're going to go ahead and time this process, and I'll come back at you when the freeze drying process is done and share with you guys what we got and how we're going to store my lettuce harvest for up to 25 years in the Stay Fresh freeze dryer. Alright guys, so I wanted to give you guys an update of what's going on with the freeze dried goodness. It's been in there for about 16 hours so far, and you could hear basically the compressors on in the unit to keep it cold. And we have the vacuum pump running. It basically sucks out the oxygen to put this under negative pressure. So what's happening at this point is that these trays are gently heating up, which then under vacuum, this whole chamber is under vacuum, the liquid in the guacamole and the lettuce can only be either in a solid form or a gaseous form. It can't be in a liquid form under vacuum. So then what happens is the moisture literally sublimates out. You can think of it like the clouds. It literally comes out into gas and then reattaches to the sidewalls, which are totally frozen solid, and then it recondenses into ice. So we're going to go ahead and show you guys a close-up on what it looks like inside the freeze dryer as it's going. Alright guys, so I wanted to give you guys a close-up on the screen. You guys could see that it's been freezing for a total of 21 hours and 40 minutes. It's been drying for about 16 hours and 28 minutes. The trap is -30, the shelf looks like 59, and the probe is 24, and the vacuum is 388 mTOR. Right, and if we go inside, you guys could see the lettuce. It's no longer all wet. You can see it looks very dry. And let's see if we can get a shot on the walls for you inside there somehow. You guys can see the wall of the freeze dryer is basically just condensed with ice. Let me see if I can show you the bottom here. That's a pretty good shot there. You can see literally this is all water that was in the lettuce that comes out into gaseous form and then recondenses into ice. And this is how literally the lettuce will be able to be shelf stable, because the moisture has been literally sucked out of it without collapsing cell walls and without the oxidation that occurs under dehydration. I love freeze drying. It's simply amazing. Alright guys, so just wanted to give you guys an update. I was out this morning actually, and I guess at some point when I was out, because I had to renew my driver's license, get the real ID, which you guys should get if you guys want to travel easily. Nonetheless, the freeze dryer had stopped and finished when I was out, so I don't know exactly how long it takes, because before it finishes, it'll tell you the time, but once it's in the finish mode, it just says done with the process, and it no longer shares with you guys the time. Once the process is done, because the trays were really cold, I then go ahead and preheat the trays. It's very important that you guys don't open the freeze dryer if the trays are still very cold, because then all the moisture inside will then get sucked back into your food. This is an error I made when I used to freeze dry in the early years. Not going to happen anymore. So I did preheat the trays back up before I open it up and let the air back in. So unlike other freeze dryers where you basically let the air back in with the drain valve, which is the low point in the system, you don't want to do that. You want to let the air in at the high point. That's why, once again, I prefer the Stay Fresh. They've thought about these little small things that make this a much better machine. In addition, of course, inside the unit, there's a complete vacuum, because what happens was after the pump shut off, there's a solenoid control valve that automatically locks out the cable here, so there will be no leaks. So you're going to still be under vacuum underneath. This is also a very important factor to keep your food with the moisture out of it instead of, migrating back in. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this little valve here a little bit at a time. You're going to hear the air basically getting sucked back in the chamber, because the chamber, once again, is still under vacuum with, less atmospheric oxygen. Once it starts up a little bit, I'll then go ahead and speed it up a little bit more. And now we're fully pressurized, and now we can go ahead and open up the door. And as you guys can see, we can go ahead and pull out our trays, which are definitely warm to the touch. And you can see what we have now is basically our lettuce went in frozen solid. Now this is basically dry. It literally it'll just crumple into dust in front of your eyes. Anyways, let me go ahead and unload this, get this inside. You want to do this process as quickly as possible, and I'll show you guys how I store this now for up to 25 years properly. So as you guys can see, I got the freeze dryer all empty, ready to unload it in just a second. But before I do, I want to go ahead and get this defrosted. So on the other side, I'm going to go ahead and turn this little valve here, which is the drain. So once you do that, then you can go ahead and then press the button up here. It says defrost. Mine defaults to 3 hours. That's the amount of time I found I need to basically thaw out all the ice that is attached to the sides. This is all literally the water from the lettuce as well as the guacamole mixture that now literally just got sublimated out. And so we're going to go ahead and hit start. What's going to happen now is that these trays are going to heat up. I'm going to go ahead and close the door. That's going to make the chamber warm. And of course, over 32 degrees, the ice will melt. And then it basically drains out a little hole in the back that then comes out a tube that runs to a 3-gallon bucket I have underneath there that then actually gets watered back onto my garden. Now on my freeze dryer, I did prop it up a little bit in the front so it's sitting at a slant, so all the water is funneled to the back. So yeah, we're just going to go ahead and let this go, but before I do, I want to go ahead and give you guys a close-up on all the ice that was sublimated out of the lettuce. Alright guys, so you guys can see now a clear shot of literally all the ice that was literally sublimated out of the lettuce onto the the walls of the freeze dryer, the top of the chamber, the left side of the chamber, right down in there, the right side of the chamber, and then even in the bottom there's like really a nice big gap. You can see all the water that was really pulled out of the lettuce. So now we're going to go ahead and shut the door and let it defrost completely so I could get ready for the next cycle. Alright guys, so here you guys have all 4 trays, which are approximately 1,500 grams going in the freeze dryer. I'm not weighing them on the way out, but they're definitely a lot lighter because once again we remove all the water. Because so much water is removed, up to 99% of the water, this food will now store for up to 25 years. This is very important guys, so once you take it out of the freeze dryer, you don't want to let the food sit any length of time. The food is so dry and has so much of the moisture removed that there's actually more moisture in the atmosphere where you live, especially if you live in somewhere like Hawaii. Luckily I live in the arid desert where there's not as much moisture in the air, so I don't have to do this as quick, but nonetheless, once you open that freeze dryer at the done cycle, the goal is get this food in bags, get it out of the moist air that will then put more moisture back in to your food, alright? So we're going to work as quickly as possible. But I want to explain to you guys some of the things I'll need. So to store this food, you're going to need a few items. Number one, you're going to need really good Mylar bags. If you guys want to use a very Mylar bags I use that are 7.5 mil per side, 15 mil total. That's very thick. Thin bags will not store as well because they may end up leaking or leaching. This has several different layers on it of the Mylar. Link down below to my Amazon shop. When you do make a purchase from Amazon, Amazon will share me a small commission. Now besides the Mylar bags, you also need oxygen absorbers. Once again, link down below for my Amazon shop where I've been using these ones since I've been freeze drying since like 2018. You will also need an impulse sealer. This is the very impulse sealer that came with the Stay Fresh freeze dryer. If you're not familiar with my Stay Fresh freeze dryer, link down below to my videos where I unbox the Stay Fresh, fully set it up. Also link down below to the episode I made visiting the freeze dryer warehouse in Los Angeles, and I showed the guys why I chose the Stay Fresh over other brands. And then finally, I use a silicone straw, and you'll see why I do this. I have a little scissors here, and then I have a indelible marker, alright? So first step is I basically open up the oxygen absorbers. You don't want to leave these oxygen absorbers open to expose to air every time after you use them because they're going to absorb all the oxygen, so you have to seal it back. So once again, we want to open this up with the scissors. We're going to go ahead and take out 2 oxygen absorbers, one for each Mylar bag, and then I'm going to go ahead and use the impulse sealer to seal up this bag. I like to buy my oxygen absorbers in packs of 10, and then now we basically got a nice heat seal on this again, so while I'm waiting for my next batch to finish, there'll be no more air put in these oxygen absorbers. Alright, next up we're going to go ahead and take 1 oxygen absorber and dump it in the bag. And then I got the ones that are gusseted on the bottom. I find these can hold a little bit more. The next step is you want to get all the material from here into the bag. So there's multiple ways to do this. Generally I like to use my hands. I also have a scoop which I may get out. Sometimes I'll take this and then put it in to like a paper bag and then put the paper bag like into the bag. The other thing you want to do is when you're taking this out, you want to feel it and make sure you don't feel any moisture, right? Lettuce is very easy to freeze dry because it can easily sublimate out the water. Some other foods may not freeze dry quite as well. Of course, when I'm saving this, I'm also testing it. Wow. Super dry, guys. I mean, it tastes like the salad, but just crunchy. Some people may like to rehydrate this before eating. I personally like to eat it dry, and then actually drink liquids before or after. Here's one of the lettuce stems. Just crunches up in your mouth, guys. This is totally amazing. Never before in the history of the earth have you been able to store your lettuce like this. But now you can. Alright guys, so I got one tray empty, and I wanted to bring out this guy, which is like a dough scraper by Chef's Planet. It actually has sides. So what I basically use this as a scoop sometimes, but in this case I could actually just pull up whole sections of the salad and just drop it in to the bag. The more you squeeze this down and compress it, the more you can fit in the bag. I like to maybe do a light fill. I don't like to compress this stuff too much myself. So maybe we'll just get like another half in there. Alright, so now this bag is fairly full, guys. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead, there's a zipper seal on these bags. So I basically will kind of like widen this bag out and try to get my mixture to go down so that I do not impede the zipper with any foodstuffs. And then I'll basically seal the zipper. Once I got that zipper sealed, next step is I will label the bag. So we're just going to go ahead with an indelible marker. We'll put homegrown salad. We got homegrown lettuce salad, guacamole, tomato dressing, and today's date. I put the month and the year so I know when this was stored. And most people might heat seal at this point. I'm not going to heat seal it yet because I'm not quite done with the bag. What I do at this point, I take the straw, the silicone straw, to basically open up the zipper in the middle just a little bit, just to kind of jab the straw in there, just like literally like 1/8 of an inch past the zipper. I then hold both sides like this, firm against the straw, and then I'll suck out the extra oxygen from the bag, putting this under vacuum. Yes, I know they make vacuum sealers and all these things, but you know, this is just like the poor man's way to do this. Plus, I get a pretty strong vacuum with my mouth. Also, it also helps keep my lungs in shape, all right? So you guys could watch me do this. And then finally, I bite down to block the flow of oxygen. I then squeeze, I pull out with my head, and it pulls the straw out as quickly as possible. I then seal it. So now you guys can see I got this bag completely under vacuum. Next step is I go ahead and put it in the impulse sealer. I have the impulse sealer set to the highest heat setting. The Mylar bags do generally take higher heat settings to seal. And then I basically just press this down. It turns on, turns off, and you guys can see we have a nice heat seal right along the top. This bag is now ready to store for up to 25 years. My homegrown lettuce, literally 2 days later. We started this process on a Monday. It is now Wednesday, and now I could store my salad indefinitely. Whether it's going to be until next winter when I want to open it up and eat it, whether it's going to be, you know, a gift to our friends, whether I'm going on a camping trip and I want to eat my homegrown salad in the middle of the wilderness, whether I'm taking a trip and traveling across the world, I could open this up and have a freeze-dried salad with the most nutrition preserved compared to any other processing method. And as you guys know, lettuce is not one of those easy crops to preserve, right? And still keep a really nice flavor and texture. Stuff literally melts in your mouth, guys. It's so delicate and tender at this point. So delicious. So if you guys are considering a freeze dryer, I only recommend the Stay Fresh freeze dryer. If you guys want to get the special discount, I'll give you guys a coupon code OKRAW. Link down below to buy the Stay Fresh freeze dryer with coupon code OKRAW. That'll save you guys $50 off the price of your freeze dryer when you guys use the coupon code and link. The Stay Fresh company will share me a small commission so I can continue to make these educational videos for you guys, all right? If you guys enjoyed this episode learning how I freeze dry my salad for up to 25 years, please be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, and more importantly, share this with other people. While this episode shows freeze dried my salad, I freeze-dried kale, I freeze-dried okra, I freeze-dried asparagus, I freeze-dried celery, I freeze-dried Jerusalem artichokes, I freeze-dried pretty much tomatoes, peppers, everything I grow in my garden. I have literally stores of food just like this that I can now store for up to 25 years to have some food security in my household, and hopefully when I have a family too, we'll all be able to enjoy the spoils of my hard labor from, at this point, my 2015 garden. So if you guys enjoy this content, want more videos of me freeze drying my homegrown food, be sure to click that subscribe button so you don't miss out on my new and upcoming episodes. I've coming out every 5 to 7 days. You never know where I'll show up, what you'll be learning on how to grow food more effectively, or even how to prepare it or store it, as in this case. Also be sure to check my past episodes. The past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 1,700 episodes at this time on this channel dedicated to you guys, all about how to grow your own high quality food at home. So with that, my name is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time. Until then, remember, keep on growing.